All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover.
Okay.
We've got some excerpts from the book itself.
Okay.
And we're going to pull out I think, some of the most powerful ideas.
That's good.
And I got to say, some of the real life stories he includes are just wow. Just wow. So if you are feeling stuck with debt, maybe dreaming of building some real wealth, or just want a healthier relationship with money, I think this deep dive is going to be for you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really interesting about Ramsey's approach is how he kind of frames the whole personal finance thing. It's not
Yeah.
just like throwing out formulas or, investment strategies. He goes right to the heart of the matter, and it's really our behavior around money.
It's like he says, right? Personal finance is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge.
Exactly.
Right.
And that leads right into his motto, if you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else.
Right.
And it's all about being willing to delay gratification, to make different choices than maybe your neighbors are making.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done, right? There are so many temptations and so many messages telling us to buy now and pay later.
Oh, absolutely.
And I like that Ramsey doesn't really shy away from that. He really lays out kind of the obstacles to financial fitness.
Yeah, he calls it this, like, it's almost like financial flabbiness,
Right?
and honestly, the first time I read that, I kind of chuckled to myself, but then I was like, oh, he's actually kind of right. Like, we're in denial about being financially out of shape.
Yeah. We avoid looking at the bank statements. We tell ourselves, oh, it's not that bad.
Right. And we fall for all these debt myths that keep us stuck in that cycle of borrowing.
Totally.
And I think one of the things that Ramsey's really critical of is this idea that debt can be a tool to build wealth.
Yeah.
He argues that it actually adds significant risk and that, truly wealthy people use debt far less than we think.
I remember him saying something like, debt is dumb, cash is king, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't mince words, does he?
No, no.
That's what I appreciate about him. He lays it all out there, especially when it comes to things like debt consolidation,
Right.
which he sees as a temporary fix that doesn't address the root of the problem.
Totally. And then there's also the stories he tells about lending money to family and friends,
Yeah.
co-signing loans. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about tough love.
He doesn't sugarcoat the potential consequences there.
No,
He's seen too many relationships fall apart because of money.
absolutely.
And he even uses that stark phrase from Proverbs, the borrower is a slave to the lender.
Ooh, it's a wake-up call for sure. He also goes after some of the big myths that we believe about cars, right?
Yes.
Like leasing being a good deal?
He tears that apart. He calls it the most expensive way to drive a vehicle.
Right.
And he doesn't let those 0% interest deals off the hook either,
Right.
reminding us that a new car loses value the second you drive it off the lot. It's like throwing money out the window, he says.
Yeah. Makes you think twice about that shiny SUV. And then there's this myth that you absolutely need a credit card to function in today's world.
Right.
Right.
Well, Ramsey argues that a debit card can do pretty much everything a credit card can.
Right.
And it forces you to live within your means, which is, of course, a core principle of his whole approach. He even compares giving a teenager a credit card to handing him a loaded gun.
Okay, that's a strong image.
It is.
But it does make you think. He's equally critical of those second mortgage companies that kind of target people who are already struggling.
Mhm.
And he calls those straight up rip-off lenders.
Yeah. He's seen firsthand how they can trap people in a cycle of debt they can't escape. It's predatory, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And speaking of predatory, he doesn't have kind words for debt settlement companies either.
No, and he calls those out for damaging people's credit in the long run. And he says it's always better to just face your debt head on.
Absolutely.
Right. But how exactly do you do that?
Well, that's where his famous baby steps come in.
Right. Okay.
This is his step-by-step plan for achieving a total money makeover.
Okay.
But here's the thing that's really, I think, intriguing. The order of these steps is very intentional.
Okay, so walk us through them.
Okay.
What's the first step?
So baby step 1 is all about building a starter emergency fund of $1,000.
The $1,000.
That seems like a surprisingly small amount.
It is, and it's not about the amount itself. It's about building momentum and establishing a pattern of saving. Think of it as like a psychological victory,
Okay.
proving to yourself that you can save money.
I see. So you're not worried about covering every possible emergency at this point. It's more about establishing the habit.
Exactly, like proving to yourself you can handle a little rain before you invest in the full-on storm gear. Okay, that makes sense. So you've got your $1,000 saved. What happens next?
Now things get real. Baby step 2 is where you attack your debt with everything you've got, using a method he calls the debt snowball.
Okay, the debt snowball. I've heard this before, but honestly, it always seemed a little counterintuitive to me. Why not focus on the highest interest debt first to save money in the long run?
That's where Ramsey's focus on behavior comes in.
Okay.
He argues that the psychological boost of paying off smaller debts quickly is more important than that mathematical advantage of tackling the highest interest rates first.
So it's about motivation,
Yes,
seeing those wins early on to keep you going.
precisely. So you list all your debts from smallest to largest, regardless of interest rates, and you throw everything you can at that smallest debt until it's gone.
And then you roll that payment amount into the next smallest debt, creating kind of like a snowball effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You gain momentum as you knock out those smaller debts, which builds confidence and fuels your drive to keep going.
It's almost like a psychological trick to outsmart your own brain. Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so let's say you've slayed the debt monster. What's baby step 3?
Baby step 3 is about building a fully funded emergency fund. This time we're talking 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses.
Okay.
This is where you start to feel that true sense of security.
Right.
Like you could handle almost anything life throws at you.
It turns potential crises into minor inconveniences.
Exactly.
A job loss, a medical emergency, a surprise car repair. You can handle it without panicking or racking up more debt.
Precisely.
But how do you actually build this emergency fund? Like, where does that money come from?
Well, Ramsey recommends using any savings you may have dipped into during baby step 2, as well as any extra money you have in your budget each month. And he's a big believer in using cash for this.
Cash.
Yeah.
Really? Why is that?
He says that when you physically see the money leaving your hands, you're more likely to think twice about impulse purchases.
Oh, okay.
Plus, having cash on hand for emergencies can sometimes give you better leverage to negotiate prices or get discounts.
Makes sense. Okay, we got our emergency fund. What is baby step 4 all about?
Baby step 4 is where we start building wealth through investing. Ramsey recommends investing 15% of your household income for retirement.
Wow, 15%. That's a pretty big chunk of change.
It might seem like a lot, but this is where the power of compound interest really kicks in.
Right.
The sooner you start investing, the more time your money has to grow. Ramsey's all about playing the long game here.
And what about those of us who aren't exactly, investment gurus? What does he recommend for, like, us regular folks?
He recommends good growth stock mutual funds.
Yeah.
He sees them as the best long-term investments for most people. And he emphasizes that these are not for short-term gains.
Okay.
The key is to ride out the market's inevitable ups and downs and trust in the power of long-term growth.
So no day trading for Dave Ramsey fans, huh?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
He's much more about slow and steady wins the race. And he's adamant that you don't need to be a financial expert to be successful with investing.
Right. It's about consistency and discipline, not trying to time the market or pick individual stocks.
Precisely. Now, once you've tackled debt and built a foundation for retirement, it's time to shift focus to your kids' education.
Baby step 5, saving for college. That's a big one for a lot of families.
It is, and Ramsey has some strong opinions on this, especially when it comes to student loan debt.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, he's not a fan of debt, to put it lightly,
No, he is not.
So how does he suggest tackling college costs?
He's not against college, but he's against taking on mountains of debt to pay for it.
Right.
He encourages families to be realistic about the costs and explore all options, like community college for the first 2 years, living at home, seeking out scholarships and grants.
He's a big believer in working during college too, right?
Absolutely. He believes it teaches valuable life lessons and helps kids avoid taking on unnecessary debt. He also advocates for having honest conversations with kids about college expectations and the financial realities involved.
Okay, so we've saved for college. What's next on the baby steps journey?
Baby step 6 is a big one, paying off your home mortgage early.
Now that is a dream. Just imagine, like, the freedom of owning your home outright. No more mortgage payments.
It's a powerful goal, and Ramsey provides a clear roadmap for achieving it.
Okay.
He suggests making extra payments whenever possible and looking into refinancing options if it can lower your interest rate and shorten the term of your loan.
I've heard some financial experts say that it's actually better to keep your mortgage and invest the extra money elsewhere. What does Ramsey say to that?
He acknowledges that there are different schools of thought on this.
Okay.
But for him, the psychological and emotional benefits of owning your home outright are invaluable.
Yeah.
He argues that there's a level of peace of mind and security that comes with being debt-free that no other investment can match.
I can definitely see his point. There's definitely something very powerful about knowing that your home is truly yours, free and clear.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've tackled all your debt, built up your emergency fund, started investing for retirement, funded your kids' education, and paid off your house. What's left? What's baby step 7 all about?
Baby Step 7 is the culmination of the entire journey, building wealth and giving generously.
This is where you really get to live like no one else, right?
Exactly.
You have that financial freedom to pursue your passions, Maybe make a difference in the world, leave a lasting legacy.
Exactly. It's about using your wealth to make a positive impact, not just for yourself, but for others.
Right.
Ramsey emphasizes the importance of continuing to invest wisely, being generous with your time and your money, and finding fulfillment in pursuits that align with your values.
It's about living a life of purpose and impact, both financially and personally.
Absolutely. It's about creating a life you love, not just a lifestyle you can afford.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into Dave Ramsey's total money makeover.
We have. Welcome back to our deep dive into Dave Ramsey's
Yeah.
total money makeover. Last time we kind of laid out his core philosophy
Yeah.
and walked through those famous baby steps.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much to explore. How do you actually do this stuff? Where do you even begin?
That's what we're going to dig into today.
Okay.
Kind of the practical side of Ramsey's approach.
Right.
And I think a good place to start is with budgeting.
Okay, budgeting, not exactly the most exciting topic, but definitely essential.
Oh, absolutely.
What's Ramsey's take on it?
He is a huge advocate for the written zero-based budget.
Okay.
And he really drives home the point that if you don't tell your money where to go,
Right.
it will just disappear.
Oh, yeah.
He has that great analogy about, you're working for a company called You Inc.
Right.
and you're your own money manager.
Right.
If you manage your money the way you do now, would you fire yourself?
It's a brilliant way to put it.
It is.
Most of us wouldn't run a business, with such little financial control.
Right.
Yet we do it with our own personal finances all the time.
All the time.
Okay, I'm feeling a little called out right now, but seriously, how does a zero-based budget actually work?
So it's all about giving every single dollar of your income a specific job before the month begins. You are allocating every cent to a category: rent, groceries, utilities, entertainment, savings, everything.
So there's no leftover money just floating around.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that it forces you to make conscious choices about your spending.
Right.
You're actively deciding where your money goes rather than just kind of letting it slip through your fingers.
I see. So it's not just about tracking where your money went after the fact. It's about making a plan and sticking to it.
Right. And Ramsey provides some really practical advice for making this work in the real world. He stresses the importance of creating a new budget every single month.
Every month. Why not just set it and forget it?
Because life happens.
Yeah, that's true.
Unexpected expenses pop up, your income might fluctuate, and you'll learn to adjust as you go. He even says, don't try to have the perfect budget for the perfect month, because we never have those.
So true. There's always something.
Always something.
Right. It's almost like he anticipates that we're going to mess up, which, let's be honest, we probably will at some point.
Oh, absolutely. He's all about being realistic and flexible, and he's got those handy budget forms in the back of the book to kind of help you get started.
Yeah, those are super helpful for visualizing where your money's going.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to the emergency fund. We talked about the importance of having one, but I'm kind of curious how it actually changes your behavior and your mindset.
So Ramsey has this great way of putting it.
Okay.
He calls the emergency fund Murphy repellent.
Murphy as in Murphy's Law.
That's the one.
Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Exactly. And he's observed that when people have a healthy emergency fund in place, they tend to have fewer financial emergencies.
Oh, interesting. So it's like having that safety net kind of creates a sense of calm and control that actually helps you avoid making impulsive decisions.
Exactly.
That could lead to trouble.
Right. And then when those inevitable emergencies do happen,
Right.
you can handle them without panicking or going into debt.
Yeah. He's got some great stories in the book about this.
By tons.
Yeah.
There's one about a couple who had a surprise $1,500 medical bill.
Right.
And because they had their emergency fund, they were able to just pay it. No stress, no credit cards.
Right. And he contrasts that with another couple who had a similar medical expense,
Right.
but didn't have an emergency fund.
Didn't have that cushion.
And they ended up having to put it on a credit card, which only added to their debt and their stress.
Exactly. And it's just a powerful reminder that the emergency fund isn't just about saving money.
Right.
It's about having that peace of mind to handle life's curveballs without derailing your financial progress.
Totally. I love how he talks about how the definition of an emergency actually changes as you move through the baby
He
steps.
does.
What might have been a major crisis when you were deep in debt
Right.
becomes a much more manageable expense once you're debt-free and have that solid financial foundation.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about investing.
Okay.
This is where things can get really interesting and potentially a little intimidating for those of us who aren't exactly, finance whizzes.
I get it.
Yeah.
But Ramsey kind of demystifies it in a way that's really accessible.
Okay.
He emphasizes that investing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about being patient and disciplined, not getting spooked by those short-term market fluctuations.
Right. He's got that great saying, time in the market beats timing the market,
Yes.
which is so true. It's more important to just be invested consistently over the long term than trying to predict the best time to buy or sell.
Right. So no need to stress about perfectly timing the market
Right.
or becoming a day trader. He debunks that myth that you need to be a financial expert or have a lot of money to be a successful investor.
Right.
He believes anyone can learn the basics and start building wealth, even with small amounts of money.
That's encouraging. So where does he suggest we start?
He's a big advocate for mutual funds.
Okay.
He sees them as a diversified and affordable way for most people to participate in the stock market.
I've heard of mutual funds, but I don't really understand what they are.
Yeah. So a mutual fund is basically a basket of stocks or bonds that are managed by a professional. So instead of picking individual stocks yourself,
Right.
you're investing in a diversified portfolio.
That makes sense. So it's like spreading your risk across multiple investments rather than putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And he points out that historically, the stock market has trended upwards over time,
Right.
despite its ups and downs.
Right. But he's not a fan of picking individual stocks, right?
He compares it to gambling.
Yeah.
He believes most people are better off sticking with those diversified mutual funds.
He's probably seen too many people get burned trying to chase the next hot stock tip.
He has, and he's very vocal about his disdain for get-rich-quick schemes. He calls them out for what they are, scams that prey on people's greed and desperation.
Right. So solid advice. Avoid anything that promises to make you a fortune overnight.
Absolutely.
Stick with the slow and steady approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's all about building wealth the right way through discipline, consistency, and a long-term perspective.
Okay, so we've covered budgeting, emergency funds, and investing. What are some of the other key takeaways from Ramsey's Total Money Makeover?
So he repeatedly emphasizes the importance of owning your home debt-free. He believes it's a cornerstone of financial security
Right.
and provides a sense of peace of mind that's priceless.
Yeah, he also has strong opinions about using debt to invest in real estate or the stock market,
Very strong.
doesn't he?
He strongly discourages it.
Right.
He believes that debt adds unnecessary risk and can easily wipe out any potential gains. He's much more about building wealth on a solid foundation of financial stability.
Yeah, it's about managing risk, not just chasing returns.
Exactly. And he's also a big proponent of being generous with your money.
Okay.
Once you've achieved a certain level of financial security,
Right.
he believes that giving back is not only the right thing to do,
Yeah.
but it's also incredibly rewarding.
He's talked about the concept of gazelle intensity, right?
Yes.
It's that kind of like relentless focus and determination to achieve your financial goals.
Exactly. He believes that financial freedom is within reach for anyone who's willing to put in the work and follow his plan.
It's inspiring stuff, you know?
It is.
But it's not just about accumulating wealth for wealth's sake.
Yeah.
He argues that once you have the means, you have a responsibility to use your resources to make a positive impact on the world.
Absolutely. It's about more than just building a bigger bank account.
Right.
It's about aligning your spending with your values and living a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
It's about creating a life you love, not just a lifestyle you can afford.
Exactly.
We've spent this deep dive exploring Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover,
Yeah.
his core principles, the baby steps, practical tips on budgeting, emergency funds, investing.
And you know what I find most remarkable is how he kind of weaves all this together with a message of empowerment.
Right.
It's not just about numbers and strategies. It's about taking control of your financial life, so you can truly live the life you want.
He doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either. He's honest about the sacrifices involved, but he also paints a vivid picture of the rewards.
Right.
Peace of mind, freedom,
hmm
the ability to pursue your passions without being weighed down by debt.
He really believes that financial freedom is a choice.
Yeah.
It's not a privilege reserved for the wealthy or the lucky. It's a choice that requires commitment and discipline. But it's a choice that's available to anyone.
And he backs up this belief with countless stories of real people who have transformed their lives using his methods. We've heard about folks who are drowning in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, feeling completely hopeless.
Right.
But they turned it around. They took control, they followed Ramsey's plan, and they achieved a level of financial peace they never thought possible.
And those stories are so inspiring, aren't they?
They are. They prove that his system really works. I think what resonates with people is that he doesn't just tell you what to do, he explains why it's important. He digs into the psychology behind our financial habits.
Yeah.
Help us understand the emotional and behavioral patterns that might be holding us back.
He doesn't sugarcoat things either.
No?
He tells it like it is, even if it means challenging some of our deeply held beliefs about money.
Right.
He's like that straight-talking friend that gives you the tough love you need to hear.
It's that honesty and straightforwardness that I think makes his message so powerful. And while he doesn't promise a quick fix or an easy path to wealth, he makes it clear that the rewards are definitely worth the effort.
Absolutely. The peace of mind, the sense of freedom, the ability to make choices that align with your values, those are priceless.
Right. It's about living a life of intention and purpose,
Yes.
both financially and personally.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your money so you can take control of your life.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, here's the big takeaway. Financial freedom isn't a pipe dream, it's a choice.
It's a choice that requires commitment, discipline, and a willingness to challenge the status quo,
Yeah.
you know. But it's a choice that can change your life.
Ramsey's famous line sums it perfectly. If you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else.
That's the challenge he leaves us with.
Right.
So here's a final thought-provoking question for you. What would you do with your life if you were debt-free and financially secure? Think about it. Dream big. And then take action. Your financial future is in your hands.